Every copy of the film was supposed to have been destroyed. That was the agreement. There were originally 4 copies of the interior. The strange 73-minute film connected to the disappearance of filmmaker Marcus Webb. After a forensic investigation concluded that the figure appearing in the final frame was physically present in the hallway when the footage was recorded, everyone involved agreed on one thing: the film needed to disappear. The original tape was destroyed. Digital copies were erased. The forensic laboratory deleted its version and signed documentation confirming it was gone. By the end of the process, everyone believed the interior no longer existed. They were wrong. A technician named Rowan Ashby had created a backup during the original transfer process. It was standard practice. He copied the footage onto an external drive and stored it in a filing cabinet under the label of an unrelated project. Nobody knew the backup existed. Not the investigators, not the archivists, not even Rowan seemed to remember it. The drive remained hidden for more than 30 years. Rowan Ashby died in 2019. While clearing out his office, his daughter, identified publicly only as Kel, found the drive inside a filing cabinet drawer. Curious, she connected it to her laptop and opened the only video file she found. What she watched was the interior. 73 minutes of an empty hallway. Nothing moved. Nothing happened. The silence itself felt wrong. In later interviews, Kay described the audio as a kind of maintained silence, as if something inside the recording was actively preserving the quiet. Around halfway through the film, she noticed she was holding her breath. She didn't remember deciding to do it. Then the final 2 seconds arrived. The figure appeared. Kay immediately closed the laptop. She sat motionless at her father's desk for what felt like hours. When she finally stood up, darkness had fallen outside. For 3 weeks, she told nobody what she had found. Eventually, she began researching Marcus Webb and the strange history surrounding the film. Most references had disappeared, but after weeks of searching, she managed to obtain part of the original forensic report. That report contained detailed measurements of the figure's position in the final frame. So Kay returned to the footage. She compared the report to the copy she possessed, and she found something impossible. The figure wasn't standing where the report said it should be. The difference wasn't dramatic, but it wasn't minor either. Approximately 12 inches separated the documented position from the one visible in the surviving copy. 12 inches closer to the camera, 12 inches more turned toward the viewer. At first, Kay assumed the discrepancy had to be a mistake. Perhaps the report was imprecise. Perhaps she was misreading it. But after multiple viewings, the difference remained. The figure in the surviving copy was not in the same position described by the people who had originally examined the footage. In early 2020, Kay contacted archivist Sandra Osei, one of the people involved in the destruction order. 3 messages were exchanged. In the third, Sandra said she could not continue the conversation. She never replied again. Kay considered destroying the drive many times, but she couldn't bring herself to do it. She wasn't sure she understood what she was looking at. And destroying something you don't understand can be its own kind of mistake. In 2022, 2 years after her first viewing, she watched the interior again. The figure remained in the same altered position she remembered, but during this second viewing, she noticed something even stranger. The camera moved, not suddenly, not visibly. The movement was so slow that it was impossible to detect in real time. But when she compared frames from the beginning and end of the film, the evidence became clear. Over the course of 73 minutes, the camera drifted approximately 6 degrees. The original investigations had all concluded the camera was stationary, a locked tripod, no movement, no drift. But in the surviving copy, the camera slowly rotated throughout the runtime, and when Kay calculated the direction of that movement, she discovered where it ended. The camera drifted until it pointed directly at the figure. A camera can drift for ordinary reasons. Uneven floors, vibration, equipment settling over time. But investigators had already examined the original setup decades earlier and found no evidence of any such movement. Their report didn't mention camera drift because, according to the footage they analyzed, there wasn't any. Yet in Kay's copy, there clearly was. Eventually, she contacted journalist Paul Hennessy. Unlike most reporters, Hennessy didn't dismiss the story. He spent months investigating. He obtained portions of the original forensic documentation. He interviewed people connected to the case, and he hired an independent forensic consultant to examine the surviving copy. The consultant confirmed 2 things. First, the figure's position did not match the original report. Second, the camera drift was real. But he discovered a third detail nobody had noticed before. 44 minutes into the film, there is a single frame, just 1/24th of a second, where the hallway is not empty. Something appears near the camera, not in the frame before, not in the frame after, just one frame. The image quality is too poor to identify what it is. Only that something was there, close to the lens, watching. In February 2023, Hennessy published his findings online. 3 days later, the article disappeared. The website hosting it was taken down. Hennessy later stated that the removal was not his decision. He never publicly explained what happened. Despite the setback, he continued investigating. He became particularly interested in the people responsible for ordering the destruction of the original copies. He confirmed Sandra Osei's involvement and began pursuing other names connected to the decision. Then, something changed. During a podcast interview later that year, Hennessy mentioned that he had started feeling watched. A car appearing repeatedly near his home. Silent phone calls. Questions about him being asked at places where he had worked years earlier. He spoke carefully. He made no accusations. But shortly afterward, he stopped writing about the case entirely. He has never publicly explained why. Today, the surviving drive still exists. Kay still possesses it. In one interview, she was asked whether she intended to destroy it. She paused before answering. Then she said she had already made a decision, but wasn't ready to reveal what that decision was. She was also asked whether she feared the footage. Her answer was unexpected. She said fear wasn't the right word. Instead, she described the film as something that required a decision she hadn't yet earned the right to make, something she didn't fully understand, and something that couldn't be undone once acted upon. What fascinates me most is Rowan Ashby. By every account, he was meticulous. His office was perfectly organized. His records were immaculate. Everything was where it belonged. Except for one thing, one folder, one mislabeled drive, one hidden backup copy of a film everyone thought was gone forever. The simplest explanation is that he forgot. People forget things, even careful people. But according to his daughter, that drive was the only misplaced item in the entire office. The only one. Maybe Rowan really did forget about it. Or maybe he remembered exactly what was on that drive. Maybe at some point he opened that drawer, looked at the label, and decided the safest thing he could do was leave it there. Never watch it again. Never tell anyone. And never let anyone know it still existed. If that's true, Then Rowan Ashby spent 31 years living in the same house as something he had deliberately chosen not to look at, and he never told his daughter why. Do you think Rowan Ashby knew what was on that drive? Yes or no? The full story is on the channel. Next week, on The Last Frame, a screening ended. The film stopped playing. The lights came up, and 47 people remained seated in complete silence. The theater manager waited 20 minutes before entering. Years later, he would say he should have waited longer. That story is next.